Yes, sir. I'm doing great, thank you. How are you, David? Yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Correct. In Indonesia, yes. Correct. But we have hundred of local languages. So, sure. Yes. Thank you. All right. Can we start? And if I can, do I have the access to share screen or? Oh, yes, I do. Okay. All right. Let me see if I can um, pull out my screen. All right. Okay. Oops. Is it? Can you see the presentation? Okay. Well, thank you so much. After we travel from Malaysia, now we come to Indonesia, and thank you, Oxford Education Research Symposium, for this lovely conference or symposium, if you will. So, as a you mentioned before that yes, I'm discussing about a school leadership during pandemic, and specifically I'm looking in a context of Islamic boarding school, and actually this is a co-author, and Dr. Aib Mursalin and Dr. Kasful Anwar is not able to join us tonight, so it's just me, and but I'm speaking on behalf of them. So let me start with the like background, and I think schooling during pandemic is affecting almost all school in the world, and I believe it's not only in Indonesia, but most of these schools in this globe are not yet ready for the shift from offline to online learning, right? And then many school principals, unfortunately, are not equipped with a certain quality and qualifications on teaching with technology and online medias, especially in Indonesian context where David mentioned we have thousand islands, and all island have their specific um, identity, and then with the especially with technology, um, some provinces are good with technology, but most provinces or islands are still facing some difficulties in having a sufficient access to not only technology. Access to electricity is still difficult. And now with the Islamic boarding school context is having the same or similar problem. So Islamic boarding school also faced some challenges during pandemic, and they need to adjust for 24-hour education because they used to have a full day school and beyond full day school 24 hours. In the morning they have a public school curriculum or national standard curriculum like public school have, and then in the afternoon and at night they have religious curriculum or Islamic curriculum, and then starting from 4 a.m. or 3 a.m. and they will start with the rituals or prayers. But now with the COVID-19 pandemic, they need to adjust those kind of you know morning school, afternoon school, and then rituals and prayings must be conducted from home. And Islamic boarding school context is very interesting because Islamic boarding school, or we call it pesantren, is considered to be the oldest education system in Indonesia. So even before our country got our independence, Islamic boarding school is already there. And parents and students are greatly appreciative to the Islamic boarding school because, as I mentioned before, Islamic boarding schools not only equip students with um, curriculum over in public school, but Islamic boarding school also offer the moral education, life skills that public school do not offer in their education system, and that why even though Islamic boarding school is considered to be the oldest, but now is still growing and growing and growing, and especially during COVID-19, actually um, parents uh, is more willing to invest more so that student can be sent to the boarding school because right now currently there are some schools especially Islamic boarding school they already open for face-to-face learning because in their context they can observe the school and they can close the school so only student and teachers were in the school's area while the visitors they cannot come to school while public school is very difficult to observe but in Islamic boarding school context they now open some of them already open for face-to-face learning because it is easier for the school to like just to lock down the school and just student and teachers in the school environment or school area, and that's why now um, parents even move their children from public school to Islamic boarding school because parents is now are dizzy to teach their student at home and then to do the like their job or their office. So that's why they just all right send the student to Islamic boarding school so that students not being at home and not playing game or with handphone, etc. And now our study is actually to fill the gap or fill the missing informations because while the research on school leaders during the pandemic on conventional schools has been widely explored, but then the study of school leaders in the Islamic boarding school context is still lacking. So that's why we are really interested to go and reach the school leaders and interview them and to see what's their um, school system look like during the pandemic. And our study was guided by a main research questions: what practices and challenges faced by Islamic boarding school leaders during the pandemic or during the outbreak. And for some of you who are not familiar with Indonesia, this is the map of Indonesia. And I'm from this province in the middle, in the island of Sumatra. For some of you who are coffee drinkers, I believe you ever heard Sumatran coffee, and those coffee are coming from this island. And in Jambi, we have many kinds of coffee that is ex- export to outside our country. So we conducted a semi-structured interviews, and actually this is a purposeful sampling where we invite 9 school principals who I already know them, um, because during the COVID-19 it's just like kind of like challenging to recruit, especially school principals in Islamic boarding school context. But um, we can interview the school principals with vary from primary to high school. So our data is actually, even though it's coming from only 9 school principals, but they are from not only they are from 3 different levels of school. So primary, and then middle school, and also high school. So now we come to the findings. And from our interview with the school principal, and we did some coding and then put them into specific themes, we found there are 4 kinds of barriers that school principal faced during the COVID-19 and beyond. So, first one is professional development barrier, and then access barrier, instructional barrier, and the knowledgeable barrier. So, now come to professional development. In Indonesian context, there are study mentioned that professional development for teachers is not um, really conducted um, like often. And then even though the government manage the professional development monthly, or it's not monthly, but it's centralized professional development. So government invites some school principals or teachers in a very very nice hotel, but then not all teachers have the access to those kind of professional development. So actually, in Indonesian context, um, teachers and also school principal need to have more professional development that is conducted at least monthly, like schools in developed countries, in Western countries, or in the U.S., or any other countries who has a very good standard of education. And so is this COVID-19 era in Islamic boarding school. Ibu Ria, for example, Ms. Ria, and she mentioned in our interview that I think we need to organize a workshop on effective use of IT to run our school virtually. It means that so far they do not have a sufficient workshop or professional development that they that especially with Buria joined. And similarly, Mr. Budi mentioned that due to the crisis we face, we need training or workshops on how to be an effective leader during pandemic and beyond. And I know this is very challenging for the government because we have a centralized system in our education system, even though our local government also manage the education system. But usually the workshop or training for teachers and school principal are held and conducted by the government. But I think a workshop or professional development would address the issues of how to use the IT or how to run the school um, during COVID-19 is still lacking. So, and this really, and I believe this is also happened to not only from those 9 schools that I interviewed, but also happened to schools beyond Jambi province where I conducted the interview. So now come to the access barriers. Ibu Devi or Miss Devi mentioned that the problem is that my students have problem both with the availability of internet access as well as their availability to purchase the internet data. But at the same time, we need to teach them, make sure that they have something to learn. So we often use WhatsApp or WA or WA here in this country mentioned. So WA is relatively offers users friendly compared to Zoom and Google Classroom. So in Islamic boarding school context, most of them are more conventional compared to the public school, where because they usually like just like face to face learning, 24 hours. So with this online learning, teachers have problem, and most of the students who go to Islamic boarding school are most of them are coming from rural areas in Indonesia, and in rural areas the access to the internet, and not only the internet but also access to the electricity is still challenging. So with this kind of system, like the challenges with the internet data, and they need to buy the internet data. So teachers decided to use WhatsApp, which is like more friendly compared to Zoom and Google Classroom. So they do not really meet face to face on online platform. Ibu Dina or Miss Dina mentioned that the best apps we use so far is WhatsApp. We use WhatsApp group for both instruction and communication purpose. Communication here means communication to parents, student, community, and our own students. So similar to Ibu Dewi, due to the access barrier to the internet, so they use the WhatsApp because it's not consume much data, internet data for both teachers and students. So if possible, we requested some internet data for both our student and teachers so we can have more meaningful online class. It was mentioned by Ibu Sas, one of a school principal. So far, government actually has already gave internet data for the students, but because of the education system or the ministry who manage the education, there are two ministry. So Islamic boarding school is under the Ministry of Religious Affairs, and public school, just like general schools, is under the Ministry of Education. So sometimes the students from Islamic boarding school, they do not really got the access of the internet that was given by the student for free. So that's why it's still we still have those challenges in teaching, because the student and teachers are having lacking of internet data, even the access to the internet and electricity. And now come to instructional barriers. I want my teachers to maximize their effort in using technology and media in teaching. We want a simple and meaningful learning activities, not just simply give bunch of homework to our students. Yes, I agree, because not only in Islamic boarding school, but most of public schools in Indonesia, the teachers only give homework without like giving a good materials for the student, or not having a meeting through Zoom or Google Classroom. Ibu Endang also mentioned similar things. School leaders and teachers need to always innovate on models, methods, and approach in online learning, so we can increase student achievement even though we work and learn from home. Technological barriers. It's actually, I already mentioned this. So, for example, Ibu Febri mentioned it here. We are from rural areas. We don't really know how to use technology. Please assist us with the use of technology in teaching online. I want our central government and local government facilitate trainings for all teachers and school principal on how to use IT in teaching. This is because our school is in a very in a very rural area. So yes, these technological barriers is still faced by almost uh, majority school, especially in Islamic boarding school context. So the findings are congruent or consistent with the previous studies on Islamic boarding school during pandemic, which suggest government's intervention regarding the lack of facilities, resources, and trainings for school principals and teachers. So most of Islamic boarding schools are private schools, but in this case, even though they are private schools, they are still under the Ministry of Religious Affairs. So government need to come and intervene, give a intervention for the school, so the students still have something or still have something to learn, even though they learn from home. Recommendation: where there is a good school, there must be a good school leader. Therefore, the government need to offer the effective and efficient professional developments for school leaders in Islamic boarding school, especially during the pandemic. The government need to also make sure that all students and teachers have a sufficient access to technology and internet and also the electricity. So thank you so much. And I really appreciate for the time. Thank you. Okay, sure. Mhm, mhm, mhm. Oh, okay. Mhm. Oh, really? Oh, really? Okay. Okay. Um, well, before I answer to Dr. Jared, I think thank you for the positive feedback. And um, when so I forgot the exact number, but my paper did mention, but I need to pull out my paper, but it is like less than 10%. So less than 10% of the population of Indonesian students that go to the Islamic boarding school. But I believe it will grow because of the COVID-19. Parents are like say give up, like to be a teacher at home, like to manage, like working, like office work and then children work, homework, etc. And now it's happening in even in my neighborhood. So public school, they usually accept like 7 classes per year, but now they only got like 2 classes, like similar, like only 60 students, and then less of the most of them are moved to Islamic boarding school because some of Islamic boarding school already open. So and I believe it will grow and grow. So and Jared, thank you because we neighbor, and I think the island, Sumatra Island and Borneo Island, is really close, and the teachers in Indonesia or the school in Indonesia are dependent to the government because I think we are similar to the American education system where have the national standard or curriculum, or like and we also have those national standard curriculum. And even though Islamic boarding school, most of them are private schools, but in the morning they still has the public school curriculum, and they adopted those kind of curriculum. So and with 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 those explanation, and the professional development also usually conducted by the government, and the PLCs, professional learning communities, that usually like developed countries has. In our country, system is not widely practiced yet. So the like the learning communities is not developed very well. So in terms of trainings and workshop for teachers, we still really need government help because Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Religious Affairs are controlling this kind of system. So I think in terms of this, we are a little bit different, like Indonesia and Malaysia system. So thank you so much. Sure. Yes. Sure.